Hi everyone, and thank you for signing up for this TÜV-SÜD webinar on addressing challenges in pharma manufacturing through Industry 4.0. I will be your moderator today, and I'll go through some basic information before we kick off with the presentation. So basic housekeeping to try to keep this session as smooth as possible. Firstly, we have participants calling in from various locations, hence you're automatically placed on mute to reduce background noise. And if you're facing any audio issues, please reach out to me, the host, via the chat function. Secondly, this is an hour session, which includes some time for questions and answers. At any time during this session, you can send in your questions directly to the panelists, and we will address these questions at the end. And lastly, this session will be recorded and made available on demand later. We will also be sending you an email to the presentation slides later this week. So, for our speakers today, we have Dr. Antonio Ferraco and Dr. Pushkar Pensi. So first we have Antonio. Antonio is responsible for supporting the process manufacturing sector in adopting technologies within the IIoT and Industry 4.0 space to enable end-to-end integration, improve HSE, and optimize efficiency. With a PhD in artificial intelligence, an MSc in industrial engineer, and a PMP, Antonio ran successful projects in oil and gas, mining, and pharma, and has been part of several international and large initiatives in the EU and ASEAN as a digitalization and Industry 4.0 expert. So he has worked with R&D, consultancy, and technology advisory sector before and has comprehensive experience in AR and VR, AI, business process optimization, project management, energy efficiency, and robotics. Antonio is also an adjunct professor of innovation process management at the University of Vitesse since 2013. He also delivers talks for industry and academia in both technical topics such as predictive maintenance and non-technical one-site management of innovation processes and technology transfer strategies. So next, we have Pushkar. Pushkar is a principal consultant for advanced manufacturing here in TÜV-SÜD. He is primarily responsible for developing and delivering Industry 4.0 services for pharma and biopharma manufacturers. He has close to 8 years of experience in life sciences sector, from drug design, development to advanced manufacturing technologies, and has successfully led projects in modeling and simulations, digital twins, and data analytics in pharmaceutical lifecycle. He is a chemical engineer by training, having obtained his PhD from the University of Maryland, College Park, USA, with a special focus in high-performance computing and simulations of complex biological systems. And now I will hand over the time to Antonio.
Thank you so much, Corinne. Thanks for the presentation, the introduction to the webinar. Welcome to everybody, and thanks for joining today's sessions about the pharma industry and Industry 4.0. Today's agenda is structured as following. We will give you a short introduction about TÜV-SÜD and the Industry 4.0. Then Dr. Pensi, my colleague, will basically introduce you challenges and trends in the pharmaceutical industry, Industry 4.0 in pharma. We share with you some interesting and useful use cases, and after I will conclude with what TÜV-SÜD, how TÜV-SÜD can help you to transform or approach new Industry 4.0 implementation strategies. Just a small introduction about TÜV-SÜD for those of you who are not familiar in numbers. TÜV-SÜD is a global, well-known multinational, is focusing in testing, inspection, and certification with more than 150 years of experience within the industry, and with 1,000 more locations worldwide, which basically entitles us to run projects globally. Further to this, another very important number is we are 100% independent and impartial, which means that we are more focusing on identifying what is the best technology than the best technology solutions provider. TÜV-SÜD, as mentioned here is basically focusing his activities with the multiple interdisciplinary experts covering the all full life cycles of the product and having in expertise in several sectors, starting from chemical and process, consumer products and retail, energy, and so on. And services that should provide starts from the auditing and system certification, inspections, testing and product certification, advisory, as well as training. And what both me and Pushkar came from is from the digital service, the Center of Excellence, which represents the innovation hub, one of the main innovation hub within TÜV-SÜD. Within the digital service, we have several areas of expertise of focus areas, starting from autonomous vehicle and mainly from the safety and cyber security, which are related to such applications, to the robotics certification within unstructured environment, predictive maintenance for lift, smart healthcare, also smart sensor network, reliability of IoT sensors in production processes, artificial intelligence, where we developed a framework to identify if all quality aspects of artificial intelligence have been followed since its beginning, smart inspection and supervision, adopting drones so that the risk of human involvement in such high risk activities can be reduce industrial cybersecurity. As with the digitalization of most of the business processes, cybersecurity became a must. And last but not least, Industry 4.0, where we have several services that have been developing in the last 3 years. Although TÜV-SÜD is active since 2011 in this topic. Focusing on Industry 4.0, I would like to share with you some of one definition and some description of what Industry 4.0 is. As you can see from this small image on the left of the slides, Industry 4.0 established an hyper-connectivity, which includes all data, information, and interaction between all the stakeholders of the value chain. From a main difference, if you want to underline, between 3.0 and 4.0 is that Industry 3.0 were merely focusing on all the business process and activities that happens within the shop floor or within the manufacturing plant. Industry 4.0 extend this range to suppliers until the last customer or point of sales. Three main concepts of Industry 4.0 are basically related to the vertical integration, the horizontal integration, and the integrated product life cycle. This is merely important because highest is integration in these three different contexts, the more agile a company is. What vertical integration is basically the integration of the all processes and data from the production process, from the sensor level until the business planning and logistics, until the enterprise level. The more integrated, the more easier is the transfer of data, not only for monitoring, but also for controlling. Horizontal integration is instead the integration of the overall stakeholders of the entire value chain, starting from the supplier, inbound logistics, internal processes related to the enterprise level, distributions, and end point of sales. And the last one is the integrated product life cycle, which encompasses all the different stages of the life cycle of a product, starting from the design until the disposal and the recycle of the product itself. This is basically the higher integration existing in these three main, let's say, processes of the manufacturing plant of the company, the more agile a company can be. The concept of agility, which is very important, as you can see from the two graphs on these slides. On the left one, you might identify that there's a longer latency from the happening of an event until the taking the action. And this is where technologies, Industry 4.0 can support in shortening this time. As you can see from the graph on the right, this time is much shorter. That means that the value of adaptation of the benefits and reacting to unexpected event is much higher. What do I define as unexpected event? We had the latest happening in 2020 due to the COVID-19. As you can see later in some of the use cases introduced to you by my colleague, the virus was an unexpected event. Now, the company that were more integrated vertically, horizontally, but also within their life cycle, where the company basically succeeded in generating the vaccine for such event. Event can be internal or external to the company itself. With this, I want to then pass the floor to my colleague, Dr. Pensi, who will basically share with us some insights from the pharmaceutical industry.
Thank you very much, Antonio. So let's start by looking at some of the challenges in pharmaceutical industry in numbers. So being a very highly regulated industry, pharmaceutical products take a really long time to develop, and different success rates at different times during the discovery and development mean that the development costs are really high. Therefore, this underlines the importance of having an integrated approach throughout the life cycle from discovery to manufacturing. And the benefits of this are significant. And one estimate is that shortening development time by about 4 months can add about $200 million to the revenue for the company over the life cycle of a drug. Apart from this, pharma companies also have a unique operations model. Because of the complex manufacturing processes, multi-product facilities, and stringent cleaning requirements, they typically have really long lead time compared to similar industries. This, coupled with the fact that supply assurance is very critical for pharma, companies tend to store large amount of inventory. So having an integrated approach across the supply chain can reduce some of these costs associated with large inventory. Also, quality is very important for pharma, and the estimate of quality cost could be anywhere between 15 to 30%. So having a really good integration across from the sensors to the enterprise planning level, as Antonio described earlier, can help reduce these costs significantly. Apart from these traditional challenges, the healthcare landscape is continuously evolving, and that is creating some new challenges for the industry. Some of the challenges are, for example, due to aging population and increased healthcare needs and reduced healthcare budgets, there's a considerable downward pressure on pricing towards the pharma manufacturers. Moreover, there is now trend towards prevention rather than cure. And and in addition to this, because of new drugs coming continuously and the competition from them, if pharma manufacturers are not able to cut costs significantly, the current therapies can easily become obsolete. And finally, there are new emerging technologies in therapeutics, such as cell therapy, gene therapy, and things like personalized medicines have a potential to completely revolutionize the supply chains in pharmaceutical industry. COVID-19 has lessons for all of us, and same is the case for pharmaceutical manufacturers as well. There's an increasing need to secure your supply chain, and adding resilience comes at a cost because it adds complexity to your supply chains. And to be able to manage these supply chains in an agile manner requires end-to-end visibility. Moreover, a lot of pharma companies are deploying work from home model across the world. And what this means is use of digital tools for collaboration or technologies such as digital twins for monitoring the factories remotely are becoming more and more important. And finally, this has also stressed the importance of having data accessible at every level of the organization to be able to take decisions in an agile manner rapidly and more rationally. So having spoken about these challenges, Antonio, how do you think Industry 4.0 can help solve these challenges?
Yeah, before going in the real help that Industry 4.0 can be, it's important also to share with the audience that there are, apart the traditional target functions, there are two new target functions that are quite important for the Industry 4.0 approach. The two traditional target functions are basically quality and productivity, where in quality basically is not only the standards that we meet, but we also part the perceived quality of the customer, which now can be continuously monitored and the feedback can be part of the continuous loop in order to improve our services. Productivity is basically the integration of the people, processes, and technology along the overall value chain. But now we have added two target functions that may help to solve some challenges, which are speed and flexibility, but not only solve some challenges, probably also providing new opportunities for the manufacturing company. These are speed and flexibility. So for speed, what we experienced this year, usually the lifespan of developing a drug is from 5 to 7 years, while we had a demonstration that this can be reduced to basically 1 year and a half time. And this is something we experienced with our life during the last year. And basically, speed is the ability of changing some of the features or creating NPIs, new product innovation, or other, to basically in order to generate time to profit. While flexibility is also important because it helps to integrate it at a higher level the overall value chain so that we can respond. We can be more agile together with all the other stakeholders that basically are working together with us. And here is an example of how focusing on the different target function, what can be addressed. Like, for example, in quality, you can basically digitalize some of the activities within quality, reducing the high quality costs needed, but also increasing the visibility that is within the overall quality processes. Productivity, you can basically shortening some of the overall manual operations that are within the processes themselves, and in order to reduce the lead time and also to fight these high inventory costs, while for speed, shortening the life cycle of the new product development. And then in flexibility, you basically can have new therapeutic innovation, shifting from prevention to cure, and so on. Apart this, what is the actual status of Industry 4.0 in pharma, Pushkar?
That's an excellent question, Antonio. So here is a quote by Vas Narasimhan, who is the CEO of Novartis from a couple of years back, where he says, and I quote, "We need to become a focused medicine company that is powered by data science and digital technologies." So this goes on to show that some of the leaders in digital space within the pharma industry have already started realizing the importance of implementing Industry 4.0 principles in their company and integrating them within the DNA of the company itself. So how can an Industry 4.0 enable pharmaceutical value chain looks like? So here's an example. For example, in discovery, AI can be used for identifying the targets for therapies. It can also be used for identifying combination therapies or different drugs that are already existing. When it comes to development, for process development, use of digital process design can be used to shorten the developmental times, as well as using some of the tools during clinical trials themselves to speed up the clinical trials. When it comes to manufacturing, use of digital twins, predictive maintenance can help reduce your process costs as well as maintenance costs. When it comes to regulatory, real-world evidence is a hot topic now in regulatory, where big data is being used. The real-world big data is being used to make informed decisions. On the commercial end, pharma companies typically generate a large amount of data. So to be able to secure this data, store this data securely, cloud technologies can be used, and also analytics can be used to process this data, analyze it, and optimize your marketing campaigns. In supply chain analytics can be used for optimizing your supply chain. Technologies like blockchain can be used to secure your supply chain and increase the trust in your medicines from the customers. So for the rest of the talk, we are going to focus more on the manufacturing part of it. Manufacturing has, here is a quote by Paul Hudson, who is the CEO of Sanofi. So here he says that manufacturing can and should become a competitive edge over the long term. And for many years, it was a little bit taken for granted. So where he slightly laments the fact that manufacturing was taken for granted, but now more and more companies are realizing that manufacturing can actually become a competitive advantage for them. So how does a manufacturing factory look like when Industry 4.0 principles are applied? So here is an example from shop floor. Paperless manufacturing can reduce, can increase the company's ability to meet the compliance. Advanced process control can optimize the processes. On the engineering end, predictive maintenance can significantly reduce your maintenance cost, as well as reduce the risk of unplanned downtime. Energy optimization can be used to limit your energy costs. For quality or robotic automation in quality labs, also automated scheduling of laboratory operations can significantly improve the productivity in quality. When it comes to process technology, data-driven first time transfers, tech transfers can again reduce your tech transfer times and reduce the speed to market. Technologies like digital twin and analytics can be used for process optimization and reducing the COGS. When it comes to logistics, if you are horizontally integrated and if you are also vertically integrated within your factory, you can integrate your planning and scheduling operations and significantly reduce your lead time to market. And finally, last but not the least, on the knowledge end, integrated product lifecycle approach can help integrate all the knowledge that is generated during the lifecycle of the process to make better informed decisions and also do the continued process verification in a data-driven manner. The important point here is that apart from this individual use cases that I have elaborated on this slide, what's more important is to have an integrated approach across all these individual use cases rather than looking at them in silos. So one of the questions that is commonly asked is, great, you have all these technologies. We know that these are very useful for pharma manufacturers, but how do we implement them in a regulated environment that pharmaceutical industry plays in? So there are some. So to address this, there are a lot of initiatives that are going on in the world, and they're focusing on developing new technologies towards that. Some of these technologies in process technology are continuous manufacturing. That's one of the biggest trends in pharma process technology, because it has a potential to reduce your capital cost, reduce the operating cost, also the footprints. When it comes to automated facility, connected factories, use of robots or cobots are the hottest trends in new developments. When it comes to mobile and modular and mobile systems, micro factories is an emerging trend where you produce these low footprint modular continuous factories that have plug and play modules which you can easily replace, and you can use the same factory for producing different drugs in an agile manner. When it comes to inline monitoring and real-time release, the use of new advanced technologies for sensing, as well as technologies like soft sensors, proactive predictive monitoring can enable real-time release. And finally, for knowledge management, having an integrated IT system internally as well as externally with your CMOs and the contract research organizations. And finally, the end-to-end visibility of your data and how that links with your CQAs. So these are some of the emerging technology themes within the industry. So like I said, so these are the emerging things are great, but how do we apply them in a regulatory environment within pharma? So there are lots of global innovators that are bringing Industry 4.0 to pharma. So these are some of the initiatives such as Pharma 4.0 by ISPE. So they have a framework to combine Industry 4.0 principles with ICH guidelines. There's digital plant maturity model by Bioforum. It's a model to assess the digital maturity of a pharmaceutical plant. There are initiatives such as the Pharma Innovation Program in Singapore. It's a consortium of different pharma companies as well as research partners within Singapore, which has a dedicated work stream for envisioning and delivering a digital pharma factory, and TUSUD is playing a key role in this. And finally, the Smart Industry Readiness Index. It's an Industry 4.0 assessment tool that was developed by Singapore EDB together with TUSUD, and it was recently adopted as an international standard for Industry 4.0 assessment by the World Economic Forum. And we have used this tool to assess the digital readiness for about 20 pharmaceutical manufacturers and help them initiate their digitalization journey. So what is the view of regulatory agencies on adoption of Industry 4.0? So here is a quote by Janet Woodcock, who is the director of CDER at US FDA. where she's talking about advanced manufacturing technologies and how they can help the pharmaceutical manufacturers, as well as the human resources associated with them. So in short, FDA is also encouraging these technologies. They have this emerging technology program where they work very closely with the pharma manufacturers as well as different industry 4.0 forums across the world in adoption of these advanced industry 4.0 technologies in pharmaceutical manufacturing and their commercialization. On top of that, US FDA is also actively funding research projects, which just outlines the fact that they are really serious about these. So essentially where we are, just to summarize, we know that industry 4.0 technologies have a huge benefit in pharma. We know that there are use cases within the factory and within the entire value chain. And finally, the regulatory agencies are also encouraging it. So what's stopping the pharma manufacturers from adopting these technologies? And we have next up few use cases, few case studies that will elaborate how these technologies were adopted and companies derive real benefit from it. So the first case study is about 7 to 8 year old. So here it's a case study from Merck. So Merck had a vaccine manufacturing process where they were where it was producing large number of low yielding batches. They were using traditional statistical tools, using spreadsheet to determine why this could be the case, and they were not able to find the root cause for it. Therefore, then they decided to use the big data analytics technologies. They collected data from 16 different sources. They analyzed it, and they determined a pattern in their process parameters that are yielding these low yield batches. They were able to rectify it, and they were able to potentially save millions of dollars every year by eliminating these low yield batches. The point I would like to make here is that this was a reactive approach. This, again, going back to what I said earlier, this is a 7-year-old example where we're talking about a brownfield facility. They had a problem and they used a modern technology to solve it. But the next case study I'm going to talk about is going to talk about a more proactive approach, where the focus is on avoiding the first such issue occurring in first place. And here is this is an example is from Moderna. So Moderna is all over the news these days for their COVID-19 vaccine. So their objective or their opportunity statement was that they wanted to develop therapies for multiple diseases simultaneously by using their novel mRNA technology. So they wanted so their target functions were quality, scalability, speed, and cost efficiency. So they decided to build a completely digital enterprise end to end. So they have completely integrated. They are completely integrated in vertical and horizontal dimensions. They have a high level of connectivity, automation, and intelligence on their shop floors, and they also have completely integrated product lifecycle. And their CEO recently made a statement that this digital enterprise was one of the main reasons why they were able to ship their first clinical batch in just 42 days after the genetic sequence of the COVID-19 of the coronavirus was identified. And they're also prepared to manufacture large number of doses together there with their partners. So how did they do it? I'm just going to elaborate a couple of examples really quickly. Here is an example of vertical integration at Moderna. So here is an architecture, a simplified architecture at that. So they are completely integrated from lab instruments or the production instruments to their LIMS or MES systems, to their ERP system that is based in cloud, and they have a layer of analytics that sits on top of their ERP. So their powerful analytics engine can analyze the data in real time from all these systems and take corrective actions almost in real time, and keep their processes running at optimal levels. When it comes to digitalization on shop floor, here are some examples that they have. They have completely paperless manufacturing. They have tools that will give real-time equipment status. They use advanced process controls, and they use technologies like IoT buttons to quickly order material from the shop floor itself, rather than going through the entire procurement process. When it comes to lab, they have completely integrated EBR and LIMS. So when sample is taken, EBR informs LIMS in real time. Whenever an analyst analyzes the sample, LIMS send those results back to EBR in real time. They also use cloud computing for some of the analytical computations and reduce the time for these analysis as well. So what this has done is it has enabled Moderna to do automated exception creation, real-time quality review, and supervisor review, and they were able to reduce the batch record review time from 3 minutes from 3 days to 3 hours, and possibly few minutes. And this is just an example of how digital technology was used for a specific case by Moderna. So this goes on to elaborate that if you know your pain points really well, if you have a vision and strategy, you can use Industry 4.0 technologies and solve some of your most challenging problems. And how can TÜV help with that? I'll pass the stage on to Antonio for that.
Thanks, Pushkar. Thanks, Pushkar, for basically sharing with us such insightful information from the pharmaceutical industry, and also these inspirational case studies. I would say. So, how TÜV can support companies that they are willing to implement Industry 4.0, that they don't know where to start, they don't know where to identify the biggest opportunity or the smallest challenges. And basically we developed several steps within our approach, from the initiation to the solutioning to the implementation and the operation. We basically position ourselves as owners, consultants. In the initiation phase, we have this called Industry 4.0 enablement program, which basically includes the readiness, the Industry 4.0 Smart Industry Readiness Assessment, and a sort of a gap analysis and prioritization matrix. Includes also training, and also in the initiation there is also the cybersecurity index, which is also part of a very important approach to understand how these integrations can be also conceived from a safe and a secure approach. Then the solutioning, the development of a roadmap and business cases until the implementation, where, for example, trusted sensors are basically data generated from the sensors is basically transferred to be a more reliable manner. Let me share with you some of the track records. I mentioned to you the Smart Industry Readiness Index, and it's basically a breaking down of the manufacturing plant in 3 main building blocks: process, technology, and organization, in 8 pillars and 16 dimensions. And each of these 6 dimensions is then analyzed, and we try to understand what is the level, for example, of operation or the vertical integration, what is the level of integration existing from the shop floor until the ERP level, what is the level of integration existing with the different stakeholders of the supply chain, and also the different level of integration, or what is the level of integration existing from the R&D lab until the engineering, until the transfer to the production, and then the distribution. And we do this for the 3 main processes. In terms of technology, we also try to and characteristics like what is the level of automation, the ability of executing tasks, what is the level of connectivity, the ability of exchanging information between multiple platforms, and what is the level of intelligence, the ability of analyzing the data and make sense out of this data at the level of the shop floor where the production of goods takes place, at the level of the enterprise where the overall administrative tasks take place, and at the level of the facility related to the all utilities that are used for the production. And then also try to assess and analyze how is the organization behaving, like basically how do we train the people, how the communication, the collaboration between the different divisions internally and external to the company is happening, what is the level of knowledge that we have of industry, companies of Industry 4.0, as well as also do we have a clear plan for the future. We applied this to more than 300 plus, I would say 330 manufacturing companies worldwide. Also more than 20 pharmaceutical manufacturers, both in biopharma and in the small molecular sector. And one of the projects that we did recently was the development of a full roadmap for a multinational, which covered several functions within a manufacturing company, which are manufacturing, quality control, supply chain, R&D, and facilities. How we did this? Basically, our approach was starting basically taking the business processes as a core of the overall different activities, and also identifying and structuring what are the different user requirements, evaluating the technologies, and also calculating cost-benefit analysis and impacts of the technology itself, developing project charter, and then translating this into a roadmap. How this process can be broken down in different steps. First steps is basically the current state analysis and strategic visioning, and we start with the bottom-up approach, try to understand what are the pain points of the people working on the floor, and translating these pain points in wish list to business process mapping and understanding where gaps could exist in the data transfer from one stage to another stage, because this also give us the ability of developing the transformation that the future state that the company can practically achieve. Within the Industry 4.0, there are several steps. If I remember correct, that in 3.0, there's computerization and digitalization, which is basically merely to Industry 3.0. The following steps are like basically visibility, transparency, adaptability, predictability, and adaptability. So these are the stages, phases that Industry 4.0 company can target to achieve in step by step. Here is just an example of what the main message here is, that you cannot achieve a predictive level if you not have a full visibility on the business processes happening on your shop floor. After that, we basically conceptualize solutions that we try to map in a system architecture, which nowadays also system architectures are changing, because the operational technology world, or T world, that means all the platform and system that support the shop floor operations, and the IT world that support the administrative operations are merging together. So it's also important to have a reference architecture that enables us to give the right position to the various solutioning. After this, and after having identified proper solutions that directly solve several pain points or address our challenges and or opportunities, it's important also to prioritize these and identify what is the dependency, because also not all the solutions can be quantifiable in terms of ROI. Think about, for example, an infrastructure, or think about, for example, the implementation of a 5G within the manufacturing plant, within the pharma manufacturing plant. That is not a direct impact or a direct ROI, but is an indirect benefit, because it will enable the transfer of data seamlessly from one piece of equipment to a platform that manages, monitor, and control the equipment itself. After this, we'll be able also to quantify the impact of the overall technologies, or the single technology solution, or all the solutions as a whole, to the different departments, to the different costs, to the different profiles of the company itself. Identify what is the current cost and what will be the efficiency, the estimated improvement once the overall solutions will be implemented and running, and also the consolidated cost for the overall solutions, which is very important, and this is what we call the business case. And following the business case, there's what we call the implementation part of the roadmap, which is basically the implementation design. Each solution is then transferred within the project charter, which describes not only the solution itself and also what would be the timeline and the indicative milestone, but also describe what would be the risks for the implementation and the mitigation plan. What are the constraints of the solution in terms of interoperability with other platforms, but also in terms of standards that need to be matched by the solution itself. And this is basically translated in project charters that are basically also considered as actionable items. And then, of course, we can also we finalize all this information within the roadmap, also applying a resource plan internal to the company itself, so the implementation can be followed, and providing a list of several technology vendors that basically have similar solutions. What I just shared with you in the beginning is that TÜV is 100% independent and impartial, and that gives us also the ability of benchmarking different solutions and identifying the best solutions that match your specific requirements. And with this, I would like to share with you some track records of some of the latest projects that we did within the pharma industry. One is basically supporting the increasing of accuracy of the data, of the reliability of the data within specific equipments in a manufacturing trail, in one pharmaceutical trail. So, because you are aware that sensors are subject to preventive maintenance, that means every X amount of time you need to do and check for the calibration of the sensor itself, and you give for granted that the data generated immediately after the sensor itself are still reliable. But in some of the cases, this is in some happening, this was not the case. So with this basically trusted sensor network, the quality and of the data is basically monitored and controlled 24/7 continuously. Another example is like supporting another pharmaceutical multinational in identifying what will be and how will be the skill sets of the future based on their planning. So they can basically also develop their people and will have ready people to adopt these Industry 4.0 technologies when moving to the next level. And with this, I would like to also pass the mic to the floor to Corinne to check if there's any questions from the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Antonio and Pushka. Thanks a lot for the presentation. I'm sure it was really insightful for everyone as well. And now we will take some questions from the audience. You can send in your questions through the Q&A function directly to the host or to all the panelists. So while Antonio and Pushka, you were present, there were some questions that actually came in from the audience. So the first one was, what will be the role of AI in drug discovery of complex biological system?
I'll take that. Thanks for the question. That's a very interesting question. So AI currently for drug discovery purposes is mostly used for small molecules. And the reason is very simple, because small molecules are much less complex. The application of AI in complex biological molecules is still in a nascency stage, but the applications are very similar to how they are for the small molecules. So starting with the identification and towards that through to the end of the discovery stage. The challenge there is definitely the opportunity there is that as there is more and more data about the structure and function that is becoming available, the use of AI for biologics discovery will also improve with time.
Thanks a lot for that. Okay, we have another question that came in as well. What would be the investment needed to implement Industry 4.0 in the factory?
Okay, it's not easy. There's no direct answer to this question from our perspective. To quantify the investment, basically there are several parameters that needs to be considered within the equation. Like, for example, what is the digital readiness level that I'm starting my transformation from? What will be my horizon in willingness to having this impact? Is my horizon, temporal horizon, a strategic horizon? So I'm looking for a transformation which will basically make a big change in 3 to 5 years. I'm looking for a tactical transformation, which basically will have an impact in 2 to 3 years' time. I'm looking for an operational horizon, which basically means I want to have some ROI in 5-6 months. Of course, this depends from a lot of other parameters, but the most important thing is that there should be commitment. There should be commitment to the top management of the manufacturing plant in the willingness to transform. And I believe that also one of the main messages now is the time to transform. What we've been living through the latest pandemic situation is basically what I used to say is that these represented two same side of the medal. The one is that people need to digitalize, manufacturers needed to digitalize, as well as pharma companies needed to digitalize. And the other side of the medal is that digitalization or Industry 4.0 are not far from our daily operation. This is something possible, and this is something the company might need to take as soon as possible. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Antonio. Here's another question. I think this person is asking about the acceptance of this technology and level of implementation in India. Could you share some examples potentially for this question?
Unfortunately, we are not really aware about the actual manufacturing status in India. We have a few or couple of smart industry readiness assessment run in India. What I can share with you is basically at the global level, what is the actual status in different processes like vertical integration, horizontal integration, and also integrated product life cycle. The most of the manufacturers are in a bending in between, I would say, define and digital. Now, just to bring you on the same understanding, when we speak about vertical integration, speak about the level of transfer of the data from the shop floor to the ERP, to the enterprise resource planning level. And different bending, different level of maturities are there's no integration at all. There's a defined level of integration, which means when standard operating procedures are in place. There's a digital level where basically planning and scheduling is transferred from OT and at the different level. There's an integrated where you have MES, where you have operational technology system and IT system in place, but still you need human intervention to transfer this data. Well, I can mention to you that the most of the manufacturer, that you can also see from some reports generated by the Economic Development Body here in Singapore, are in between the level of define and digital. Only few companies arrive to the integrated level and above. I would say only the 5 to 10% of 300 plus company. Now about the actual readiness status in India, I cannot answer directly, but I will be very happy to provide you with more insight, discussing with some of my colleagues and maybe getting back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Antonio. Here's another question. There are legacy systems on the shop floor in plants. How does the data integration happen between shop floor and top floor (ERP)?
There are what? Sorry?
So how does the data integration happen between shop floor and top floor or
Okay.
ERP?
And usually there are platforms that enable this integration. One of these platforms or technology is the MES system. Another one is that is part of the family of the manufacturing operation management platforms. When there's an MES system, the MES usually is able to enable this interoperability from the shop floor, because the MES collects and transfer data from the different equipment, job task and other sort of information, as well as also health of the equipment itself. But it's also able to get the planning directly from the ERP. So from the ERP system, where usually the scheduling and planning is inputted, can be automatically transferred by the MES to the different equipment, to the different production line. At the same time, the actual status of the OE, the actual status of the capability of the shop floor, is transferred back by the MES to the ERP system. So I would say that there are platforms like MES system that enable this integration. There are also other IoT platforms, the last generation, which also enable this sort of integration. And also another important observation is that people are moving from the in their system architecture, people are moving on the side this ERP system. Until today they have been the focus of the overall architecture, but they are moving towards some data integrated platforms, which enable also correlation about other different parameters generated both at the ERP level and at the shop floor level. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Antonio. All right. So again, if you have any questions, please share them in the Q&A function. And don't worry if the questions that you ask, we didn't manage to answer them today. We will actually get back to you after this session itself. So feel free to drop them in the Q&A function, and we will highlight them as many as possible. All right. So Antonio, here's another question, Pushkar as well. How do you learn this technology from basics onwards?
From basics onwards. But usually, if I understood well, the question is basically there should be always an analysis of what is the actual digital level of the company. So from that sort of analysis, of that sort of discussion, interview, and focus group that we have with the operators, we are able to understand what is missing in creating this sort of interoperability or interactivity between the different platforms, not only at the vertical level, but also the horizontal level. From that step, we actually try to identify what are the latest technology in the market that can address these gaps. And basically in discussion one-to-one with the different solution technology providers, we try to see if these technologies meet the actual requirement of our customers. Of course, there's a continuous interaction with our customers in order to structure such requirements, in order to identify them into the features of these technologies. After that, the technology impact is quantified and then transferred to the customer, to the company itself, which can go directly to these technology solutions providers, or can also use TÜV as one owner's consultant and support their overall transformation. Thanks.
Thank you for that. So here's the next question. How are sensors monitored by dynamic modeling? Do you have any specific case studies on critical equipment in aseptic process?
Probably in aseptic process directly, not yet. What we shared with you before about trusted sensor network is basically a technology that is able to be applied at both at the sensor level and both at the DCS or SCADA level. So this also enables the monitoring of the reliability of the infrastructure itself, and is based on dynamic modeling.
Yeah, so just I would like to add a few things. So it's not so the only thing when we are applying these technologies to aseptic settings in pharma is that we need to be we need to be cognizant of the 21 CFR Part 11 guidelines and the GAMP 5 framework on top of what Antonio mentioned just now.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right, here's the next question. What are the key challenges faced by pharma companies in terms of going ahead with any sort of digital transformation?
Some of the challenges were already shared by Pushkar during the presentation, but basically is not the full visibility on the shop floor. If I have to summarize some of them in some bullet points, I say lack of full visibility on the shop floor. Some of the information needs to be still collected manually and transferred manually in platforms. And given the regulatory framework around, these are operations that are continuously running. Some other challenges might be also the supply chain. Not everything depends on one single stakeholders, but sometimes multiple stakeholders are involved in the development of one drug, of transfer of a product to the market. That means that sometimes external factor impact also in our business processes. So increasing the overall integration of the supply chain, of the value chain, if we want, can basically also address these challenges. You want to add?
Yeah, and the only thing I would like to add is essentially it's being a regulated industry, and there is so every country has its own regulatory body, and they all have different requirements, and that's one of the things that has traditionally stopped pharma companies from adopting Industry 4.0, but the things are changing. So ICH guidelines are very clear. Like I shared earlier, FDA is really promoting use of some of these technologies. So in future, we'll definitely see pharma industry catching up on new technologies, although it appears to be lagging behind a little bit now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So here's the next question. What improvements are there from Pharma 4.0 for API manufacturing?
So the improvements will be visible in the 4 target functions that Antonio described earlier, which are quality, productivity, speed, and flexibility. So you can get you can get better productivity without having to sacrifice your quality. So that is one of the clear benefits. You can get better flexibility in your manufacturing. Better flexibility in manufacturing can help you reduce your inventory costs. So essentially, if you're able to improve on target functions using Industry 4.0 technology, that will definitely have an impact on your bottom line going forward.
All right, thank you very much. So we still have some time for more questions. Again, if you have any, feel free to send them over. And if we are unable to answer them within this session, we will get back to you after as well. So here's the next question, Pushkar. I think in the presentation you mentioned that moving towards modular factories, how do you achieve this under the regulatory requirements when one needs to validate process, equipment, systems, and what challenges do you expect in the adoption of this?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So one of the challenges is the interoperability of the different modules. So the whole idea of plug and play is that you should be able to plug out a particular equipment again, so that the challenge of interoperability, again, like you very correctly mentioned, creates a challenge in validation, and this is where forums like Bioforum, forums like ISP Pharma 4.0, they are working very closely with the regulatory agencies to bring about guidelines for adoption of modular factories. The current guidelines do allow, and there are examples across the world in some of the big pharma companies where they have adopted modular factories. But definitely, as more discussion happens between the companies and the regulatory agencies, the things will become smoother. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Here's the next question. Is there any EU Union or VD or FDA or 21 CFR 11 standard available or published on Industry 4.0?
TÜVSÜD, together with the SMF, Singaporean Manufacturing Federation here in Singapore, they mapped many standards that are applicable to Industry 4.0. Frankly speaking, I don't recall all the name of the applied standards or listed standards. Some of them, for example, are the IEC 62443, that's for industrial cybersecurity. Then there's another 62890, which is more related to the life cycle and management of a platform, of a product. There are several standards that in different spaces of Industry 4.0 have been mapped. One, let's say, regulatory standard is for Industry 4.0 in total as a whole is not in place. The Smart Industry Readiness Index, for example, has been internationally recognized as a standard, as a framework for the adoption of Industry 4.0, which is already a big achievement from our side. But to suggest to the person who shared this question is like, look in the web for the mapping of the different standards developed by us together with the Singaporean Manufacturing Federation, where you can have a mapping of the standards already available in place and basically mapped towards Industry 4.0, also through the use of the Smart Industry Readiness Index.
Thank you very much, Antonio. So that's all the time that we have for today's question and answer. Don't worry, for those questions that we are not able to answer, we will get back to you after this session itself. So we hope that you found this session interesting and relevant. And if you have any questions regarding the webinar topic or what we do, feel free to email us at industry4.0@tuvsud.com. That is INDUSTRIE 4.0@tuvsud.com. You will also receive an email after this where you can get in touch with us directly. And to get the latest news on regulatory updates and more, follow us on our social media accounts as listed on the screen. Once again, thank you very much for your time and have a good rest of the day ahead.
Thank you.